It's very wonderful to connect and see each and every one of you tonight. If it's okay with all of you, before we start with the questions and the sharings, let's, since we're moving into the subject of grace and sacredness, let's move a little bit in the heart space and invoke a little bit of sacredness and grace for us tonight. Are you able to hear me okay? Okay, good. So if it's possible for you to find the position in which you're comfortably seated, your back is straight. If you softly and gently close your eyes, and consciously move into a rhythm of deep, gentle breathing, allowing your abdomen to expand when you're inhaling, and then for your abdomen to slowly contract when you're exhaling. Move your attention to the center of your chest, the space of the spiritual heart. And simply move deeply into being, focusing your attention in your spiritual heart area. Using the rhythm of your breath to anchor you in this space. And as we are centered in our heart, we make an open invitation for the ocean of grace to flow into our hearts. And as we move into this invitation of grace into our lives, we can visualize our experience as the drop of water that is merging with the ocean. feeling all the support, the unity of life being held by this ocean. And we can intentionally relax. And allowing ourselves to have a gentle reminder of the ease of going with the flow of grace in life. The willingness to be here now with whatever arises. We take a deep breath and move our awareness to our entire body. We can smile towards our body and express gratitude for the opportunity of having the experience to be here now through this sacred temple. And as we honor this sacred vehicle, we also express gratitude for the opportunity to experience this journey with everyone tonight, with every being, with the entire universe. We take one last deep breath. And we slowly and gently close our eye, open our eyes, sorry. I wanted to know if anyone had,
7:40.
oh, sorry. If anyone had any type of questions, experiences, something they would want to share tonight. A little bit of sharing about how opening to grace is going, how easy or difficult it is, the things that can come up. I'm very curious to know how you're all navigating this. Yes, Paula.
Sorry about that. I thought I had unmuted. Yeah, I can't resist your question. I didn't really want to talk, but my experience is really intense of resisting grace, I think. I've shared that I met someone who lives in another state and she's coming to see me. And I don't know if I'm more terrified of if I do when I meet her. I haven't met her yet. You know, we've Zoomed, we've talked, all this. But I don't know if I'm more terrified of meeting her and have it be awkward and weird, or having her be someone that I've been praying for years. And I'm really shocked at how much anxiety I have, primarily about the latter. You know, that when, I mean, I've had many prayers, and they're not always answered in the way I think they'll be answered, but they're answered generally. And this is one prayer that has never been answered, and I fear, like I'm fearing what the cost is of having this prayer answered. Like, can I go with the flow, or is it going to be a rough ride of resistance, of surrendering the things that I'm comfortable with, living alone, living in the city I do with a whole bunch of friends and a community that I've been with for a long, long time, because this woman has already said she doesn't want to move. And only because she has a beautiful house, and you know, it would be a house in the woods, something I would love, I think. And she fits all the criteria of what I've been looking for. So anyway, it's such a weird state of resistance, fear. Just, that's my share.
And that's okay. It is what it is. Thank you for sharing, Paula. Yes, Leslie.
Yeah, I think my experience has been also intense, where I feel like every day I kind of get hit with something. And I feel really grateful for this class because it's really given me, I think, a really big tool of, instead of getting hit and then immediately jumping into story to try to figure it out, I have done that some. And it's made it infinitely harder. And then, you know, the moments when I remember to be like, oh, right, like just drop into the sensation, just breathe into the heart. The lesson just comes so much more gently. I guess if we don't, like, the grace just comes so much more gently. And I mean, I guess not always, right? Like, there have been times where it's been raw emotion and it's been wildly intense, and I do the breathing and it's just still really hard. But I guess maybe one of the things that I'm learning and experiencing is that every time I go into story, I make it that much harder on myself. And every time I kind of just sit in the body and be open to the emotion, be open to whatever arises. It seems almost as though like it's healing backward and forward and now all at the same time. Like now time messengers are like triggering healing that needs to happen now, but also like stuff that is old that like never got to heal also, which then helps me to like step into something really different for whatever's ahead of me. And there are moments where I'm like, this is happening too slow and I want to move faster. And then there are moments where I'm like, this is great. This is fine. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Leslie, for sharing. Yes, Paula.
Hi, hello. I was listening to Leslie and I felt totally like it was me talking. I can totally relate with what she was saying. And I would like to add, today was especially tough. I was very busy working, but I was feeling a lot of anxiety and kind of very intense inside. So every time I tried to just work and concentrate on the external day, it was really tough. I was like feeling like a lot of movement here, but every time I stopped and just listened to it, like breathe there, even saying out loud that I didn't want to name it. I mean, I can't say that it was anxiety. I'm sure there was a bit of anxiety at some points, but it was like a mix of so many things happening inside that I didn't even want to heal it, or I didn't even want to understand, because I relate with what Leslie said about the stories in my mind. Every time I was in my mind, that what was happening here was harder, and it was like the story was like a nightmare. What was happening inside was intense as well, but let's say that the story was making it worse. So every time I could get out of my mind and just go to the present and what I was feeling and breathe at least for 2 minutes while working, like stop, breathe for 2 minutes and give it space, it helped me a lot. It like calmed down a little bit. I mean, the intensity was still there, but somehow I wasn't running away from it. And then I realized it is like I have 2 kids. They are like 6 and 4 years old. So when they ask for attention and you give them attention for 5 minutes, then they can play by themselves for half an hour. But if you don't give them the attention during those five minutes, it's a nightmare. I mean, they really ask for attention louder and louder and louder. And then I was kind of comparing that intensity inside of me, like, please give me attention, at least 5 minutes. Then you can work for 20 minutes. You know, I felt like in a negotiation all day. You know, I really had a lot of work, but I needed to stop every now and then to like, oh my God, I'm really like, this is too intense. I have really intense emotions inside. So thank you, Leslie, for what you said.
Thank you, Paula. Does anyone have a question or something else they would like to share before we move forward with the class? So here is where I find myself in a little bit of a tricky situation from the outside. We are having this course about grace and how to connect with grace. And we're moving a little bit more into how to create either a sacred space or physically, or moving towards generating this aspect of sacredness to bring forth grace, which is a very powerful tool to connect to grace. But what I'm feeling with what I'm reading about the posts and the shares on the Telegram group, and when we meet now, is that there is kind of like a lot of intensity in the experience of really connecting to what is there that can diverge a little bit the attention from that space of generating kind of like a sacred space to connect to grace. So with Doug, we were having this conversation of do we move forward, or do we just give a little bit of more tools of how to move deeper into this experience of what it is that arises, because it is very intense, and it begins to create kind of like tsunami experiences, right? Because we're usually disconnected from what's going on. The more attention we start bearing with it, it seems to become so much of something the mind doesn't want to experience, like that intensity, which is just the natural state of how we experience things. We as human beings are beings that feel. We have sensory systems everywhere. So we're actually being flooded with a lot of stuff from the sensors, the sensory inputs that surrounds us and what it triggers inside. We're all the time in this kind of basic communication, but because we have put so much attention on the story, we are very disconnected on how that feels and how that goes. And I call it, we all suffer from the natural fear to feel. We're very scared of feeling because it feels very illogical and intense, and you can't really know what's going to happen when you're feeling. It's very difficult to know where a feeling might take you. So allowing it to be there feels a little bit dangerous as well, because it's like unknown territory. So I'm really curious, and I wonder if it's okay with all of you to move more into this, and I mean move on as in the class today, more into this flow of connecting to grace, or do you feel you're more interested in diving, maybe just for tonight, a little bit more on tools of how to connect all of these feelings and emotions, and how to sort of like Melanie was sharing last week, how to use this fuel also to be more present and more aware. Yes, Charlotte. I can't, you need to mute yourself so we can hear you.
I would vote for going deeper.
Deeper into the emotional part?
No, the first thing you said no, not the emotional. The first thing you said to go into more, I've lost it now. I don't.
Don't worry, I lost it too. That's why I'm like, what? Yes, Paula.
I think that what Charlotte wanted to say is like the first thing is going further with grace. And
Okay.
what I wanted to share also is that after all that intensity, for me, you one of the sessions that you were teaching us about the inclination of the head and the surrender, it was so useful. I mean, today I remember that, and I remember that option to not only not understand that in my mind, but in the middle of that intensity, surrender to grace, you know, and to pray like, I don't know what is this, and it's really like very intense. So in my opinion, also, I kind of feel that if we go further into grace, it is going to help us as well with the intensity that we are experiencing. So that's my vote as well.
Okay. Yes, Julie.
What I've been finding is I have a lot of intensity happening around me, you know, with my family and my son and everything. And if I'm in my head, my emotions are out of control. But if I sit in my heart, and again, what Paula said, that was very nice for me. And it's interesting because in yoga, we're working on opening that whole channel between the heart and the third eye. And it's all about, you know, opening the throat. So I have been doing that. And if anything, I feel calmer from sitting in that space. I can be very emotional, though. When you said people are afraid of feeling, I have, you know, that's just part of who I am. So I've accepted that in my life. But for me, being in the moment brings me more into grace and quietness. And when Doug was talking about building an altar, I have altars in every room of my house, and they all mean something different because each room is something different to me. And so I've been using, I think of my spaces to help me depending on what I'm feeling, you know, if that makes sense. But that's been wonderful this week.
Okay, thank you. And I have a practical question then to move forward. And this practical question is just semantics. I want to be inclusive and I want to be respectful. So is it okay for everybody in this class if I use the word divine, kind of creating just a use of the word divine, but with the understanding that that is a very personal experience to every person here. And it doesn't mean that we're trying to turn you into something. We're just sharing with you the tools that we have. And if someone has a trigger with that, I'm okay with using synonyms to divine. Or it's also an invitation to kind of discover what is it that's triggering inside, because in the end, it's just a word. We use words because we're trying to communicate, but the word in itself, it's not a universal meaning. The wonderful thing about language is that it can shift and change, and we can create our own meaning of it and try to discover what it is for us instead of trying to figure out that it's something that is pertaining either to a group, to a dogma, to a belief system, to whatever it is. Because this can be sometimes really difficult because we've had experiences either with religion or expectations and situations and perceptions that we might have had why not things are flowing the way we want them to flow. And this can hinder a little bit when we talk about divine or grace, because they can have that taint. So I just really want to make that clarity. So there's one thing very powerful about the exercise, and I want to remind to all of you something I want to always be very insistent on, and is that whatever sadhana or practice we invite for you to do, it's not to expect a specific outcome out of it or to do it in a rigid way, but just to start the process of doing something and allowing yourself to discover who you are a little bit deeper. And one of the most powerful tools for this is creating a sacred space or an altar. And one of the most powerful things that can be done in those spaces is that experience of safety or solace or kind of comfort, right? Whenever we are experiencing a little bit of turmoil or we're upset, we can be drawn, for example, to walk into a church or to move into a space that may seem religious or may have some sort of worship, because we unconsciously understand that these places can act like bridges. We are in a moment of pain, of suffering, we're looking for guidance, and we're trying to find something, right? And in the end, these spaces work like a bridge. They work like a physical space where you can feel that surrender, that coming to terms with my own humanity that has been collectively done by thousands of people in the lifetime of that space. Have you all had that experience of going to a church or a place of worship and suddenly kind of feeling a little bit of ease and relaxed and the feeling that you can breathe deeply? And that is because for however long that place has been used and however much people have used it, they're all going with that same type of yearning. And at some point they return with the gratitude from that prayer or that asking for help or whatever it is that moved them to them. I don't know if this is a practice that you do in this country or in wherever it is that you're from. In my country, which is very Catholic, and we have a lot of saints and angels and Mother Marys, and it's still one God, but it has many manifestations, and there are many churches with different things. And there's something that people do that when they go and ask for a prayer or help or a miracle, and they kind of make a negotiation. If this happens, then I'll come back and give some money, or I'll take a pilgrimage back here, or there is kind of like this building of trust. I received this, I will give that back. So this type of sacred spaces have that energy of the asking and the receiving, the joy of receiving, the understanding that grace has always been there to support me. And this is something that unconsciously brings a lot of safety and ease into our beings. So creating a sacred space and taking it a little bit deeper, the reason why the space is safe, the reason why we, and it's just a word, we worship, is because we're trying to connect with that is higher. We're offering the things that represent the higher of who we are. Whether it's our time, whether it's flowers, whether it's a candle, whether it's fruits, whatever it is that means the higher to us, we are offering that to connect with that which is higher. Because we're yearning for that. We're yearning for that sort of being embraced by grace as a whole, right? And I know you asked Doug in the last class, what does grace mean to him or how he experienced it? And I wanted to share to you how I experience it. And for me, grace is like the ocean. If you're a fish, the ocean is your entire universe. You can't explain what it is, but it gives you everything you need all the time, right? And if you're a fish, that means that you're getting food, but that means that you're also relating to predators. There is a fascinating experience with nature where we have to be able to understand. Nature pushes us to understand that grace or the divine is in everything, even in a shark that may put the life of the fish at risk, but is sustaining the entirety of the life that upholds the ocean. And that is what grace feels to me. It's like this ocean that we are in it all the time. We may forget about it, but that doesn't mean that because we forget about it, it ceases to exist. It's there nonetheless. And creating also this space of sacredness, whether it's an altar, it doesn't have to be a physical altar. I'm like a Julie person. We had a friend come into our house, and that person said that being in our house was being like, what was it? It's being at a temple on steroids. We also have altars everywhere. Like the only place I don't have altars is in the bathroom. But sometimes I think I should, but then it feels tricky. But everywhere else. And it's very eclectic, but it's all very personal to me. But there is one specific room we have in our home that it's like that massive steroid influx of this sacred space, right? And it's a space that we treat in the way that we were taught in India about how to treat a sacred space. We enter without shoes, we clean it with rose water, we offer flowers, candles, incenses, all those tricks, well, mainly to me, because I have a lot of connection that way. But it's also a space where I can just go inside and sit and close my eyes and kind of feel I'm in this special type of bubble. And it also allows my nervous system to relax. The more we do something, the more that space gets embedded with that type of energy. And when you hold something with so much sacredness, many things start happening inside of you. And building this altar or this sacred space is more of a bridge that we're crossing until the entirety of life becomes sacred. The entirety of this experience becomes a sacred space. But to be able to move into the constant experience of this ocean that surrounds us, connecting to grace, we need to take some sort of action, and we need to take some sort of constant action. Building an altar, or even if it's just, it doesn't have to be an altar, but it can be a specific space where you sit and you do your spiritual sadhanas, breathings, journaling, whatever it is. You're creating this space so your nervous system can also relax. The moment you enter it, there is that natural experience of those sacred places where you feel you're kind of like how it feels when you're floating in the ocean, right? You can be in the middle of the ocean knowing I'm in the middle of the ocean and I don't want to drown and be kicking, right? We will only eventually make you tired and more, it's just easier to drown that way, to just take the other route, so to speak, and be like, I am in the middle of the ocean. There's nothing else I can do. I might as well just float, right? And how do we float? We change how we breathe. The deeper we breathe, the better we float. The faster we breathe, the less we're floating. So this experience of this, let's call it sacred space. This sacred space, it just becomes like you're planting a seed within yourself to have a very strong internal bridge to connect to the divine. Charlie just asked privately that if I would say grace and the divine are the same. I would say I would say that the divine is everything in the universe and that grace is filled with the divine. The divine is everything in the universe and grace is filled with the divine, right? They're kind of the same, but grace is more of the bridge we take. And this has many names in different traditions, but in our Catholic tradition is the Holy Spirit, right? Is that which connects us to the higher. So grace comes as this powerful bridge. And usually in ancient traditions, many of the forebearers, is that a word? I don't know. Many of the bringers of grace are called angels. And the definition of angels is messengers, right? Because they're kind of bringing us back to seeing things differently, to seeing things from a different perspective. And the moment we have those experiences, because we all have had experiences with angels in the sense of messengers bringing forth a message of higher consciousness, whether it's in a situation or something, but the moment we experience it, that experience shifts everything. And what we're doing while we're creating externally this sacred space is we're kind of opening the gates of grace, of being like, okay, I need you in my life. Yes, I know you're everything and everywhere and kind of thank you, but I really need you right now, right? So it is one of the most important things when creating a sacred space is having clarity of intention. Why am I doing this? What is my purpose? What is it that I'm looking for? And this intention can be very personal. There's no right or wrong intention. And why is it so important to have that intention and to have clarity on that intention? Because the moment you have clarity on that intention, your whole system begins to bring coherence, right? This brings you clarity of vision, right? This brings humility. But this is the seed of the heart. And this is what is constantly communicating to the universe. It is your heart, right? So we need to have that clarity of what is it that we want, but we also need to bring it down to how does that feel? And creating that sacred space is bringing forth, we are taking action to bring forth what is it that we want to bring in our lives. If you're creating a physical altar, because everything, for me, in my experience, everything is sacred. And all of the gods and goddesses and divine representations we have at hand, if you feel called to use one in your altar, you don't have to. But in a sense, they're portraying a quality of the divine, right? A quality that we're looking for. And having that connection, right? Finding the things that make me feel the way I want to feel kind of all the time. I want to return to that space of sacredness, that you're able to enjoy life, but also wonder at every single thing. It's like returning to being a child with the awareness that we have now. We can enjoy life and we can engage with life, but we can wonder at a rock and at a leaf and everything becomes this magical relationship with something that's divine or higher consciousness in experience. And the thing is, moving from the intention of wanting something towards the action that it's involved in building something and sustaining it, it's that constant effort that brings forth the oceans of grace, kind of like a waterfall. You're kind of honing down the entire ocean to flow to you. But for that experience to be palpable, there has to be some action involved. And the thing is, we can be very delicate beings when we're dealing with the moments we have lost trust or we have gotten hurt by experiences that we embed the divine as the ultimate gifter of, right? The experiences that have been hard, that have been difficult, whatever it is that we're facing that we can't seem to move along, there can be in the back of us this kind of resent or fear or lack of trust or anger or whatever it is that is there because that didn't happen the way I wanted it to happen, right? And that experience anchors me into kind of blocking a little bit that flow of grace. But when we're actively moving into creating, and for some people, the sacred space can even be their yoga mat. It doesn't have to be how we understand it. Every person I invite everyone to discover the way their sacred space works. But in doing so and doing so every day, you're kind of creating a field that the more you immerse in it, the more you're able to relate in feeling held by that ocean. And when I mean being held by that ocean, it means that even when it's painful and difficult, being able to move into that sacred space and be like, I'm in pain right now, and it hurts, and I don't like it, right? Having a very authentic relationship with that bridge you're looking towards the divine, right? Allowing yourself to be who you really are in that moment. And if you really look into it a little bit deeper, you're honoring your own humanity with the same amount of sacredness as the space that you're building. Because you're bringing forth what is really inside of you authentically, right? Because I don't know in your traditions and cultures, but the way that I was raised, whenever you prayed to invoke grace into your life or the divine, you had to be well and proper. And you should always kind of like be behaving well, right? And whenever there's like an emotion or something arising, there's a lot of shame and guilt, and I shouldn't be feeling this. And you like try to take it away and compose yourself. But this is the space that is sacred enough to bring forth whatever it is that you're carrying inside. This is the space where you yield to your own humanity. And you acknowledge, this is where I am. This is what is going on inside of me. We always have this yearning of finding, I call it either the best friend or the best partner initiative. We want to find the perfect person that has to love us unconditionally, no matter where we are and no matter where they are, 100% of the time, right? And we are demanding this out of human beings that have our same human condition. We all not have the same wonderful day all the time, the same energy all the time, right? And we keep getting hurt because we don't receive that from the other humans that we're expecting it from. But the thing is, the more we cross this bridge of connecting to grace, the more we start receiving that fuel to be able to experience how this life is ever loving unconditionally, no matter what is going on inside of you. Because if there is a higher supreme power that judges and condemns, I don't think humanity would be alive. I don't think there would be hope for any of us, because no matter the stories we tell ourselves of how we are victims, we are all perpetrators in each other's lives when we are in hurt and pain. We are unconsciously causing pain in others. So if that condemnation and judgment was real, there would be a massive reset button all the time. And yet here we are, yet all of humanity with all the chaos and everything that is going on is still here. And it goes beyond our capacity to understand how the world can be like this, because that is the power of unconditional love and grace. It doesn't really matter. So having this sacred space is not about being proper, and it's not about being good. It's about being where you are, having the opportunity to really open your heart to what is there, to be able to you yourself even accept and embrace your own humanity. Does this make sense? Yes, Claudia.
So I just want to share one or two things. I live in Asheville now, like you, but I moved here from Los Angeles. And when I lived in Los Angeles, I used to walk. I'd get up maybe 5 mornings out of the week, and I would get up around 6 a.m. and walk. I lived on the west side, kind of close to the ocean, but before all the traffic would start. And besides having a Hare Krishna center close by, there were a lot of Catholic churches. There were, all kinds of churches around. And there was this one in particular, I would go in sometimes just to sit in a pew and say a prayer. And I'm not Catholic, but it was a really pretty church. So one day, I really wanted to connect with Mother Mary. And in Catholic churches, they have these little stations, and there's Mother Mary and there's St. Francis. And I'm getting like this sign right now coming through the top of my crown going, yes, like because of the story that I'm going to tell you. So anyway, I decide Mother Mary. It's Mother Mary today. So I kneel down in front of Mother Mary, and it was like I got hooked up to the internet. Like my channel opened, and I could tell that so many people had knelt right there and prayed to Mother Mary that, like what you were talking about, there's like a vortex, like it was open, like 24/7, come talk to Mother Mary because she's here, but it's a sensation, energetic sensation that I've experienced. And when you were talking, like, I was like, I know what you're talking about. Or when I call in my I am presence, like it's like this presence that comes and surrounds me that I can actually feel, like an energy field, like you're saying. And then also when I lived in Los Angeles in my apartment, I had this sliding glass doors that had like a little balcony, and I had a nice little altar out there, and then just on the other side I had my meditation chair, which was this big rattan chair behind me, and I had an altar in front of me, and I would meditate there every day. And I just have to say, I had more cats, wild cats, no, what do you call them, like anyway, stray cats may have their babies born on my porch than anybody I've ever heard of. But I think it's because the cats could feel the energy and they would just come and they would give birth right on my porch. And it was really interesting. And then I had a couple of squirrels who felt the vibe too. I felt like freaking Snow White, you know, or like whatever with the and with the animals, but the squirrels would come up and they'd get up on the altar and they'd look in the window. But I knew it was because of what you're talking about. It was that the connection every day, that there was like a vortex or something, and it was palpable to anyone who is sensitive, and animals are very sensitive. But anyway, that's all I want to share.
And that is something very powerful. Thank you, Claudia, for sharing, because there is something. The universe is in constant conversation with each and every one of us. And there is a very powerful response when we are coherent with ourselves to how the universe starts to conspire and kind of whisper with us in this conversation, right? The more we do what is it that we need to do, and doing it means, I think you say it in this country, putting yourself out there, right? Because, and Paula, I'm just going to use you as an example. This has nothing to do with you, but I'm just going to make an example with your situation. It's very natural for all of us to be how Paula is feeling with the possibility of this relationship, how we feel with Grace or with life in general. We have this deep desire within ourselves, and there might be an opportunity that we can sense or feel that is an answer of what is it that we're looking for. But because we have this fear, because we're carrying all of the things that are happening, that have happened before, we are unable to jump freely with the understanding that I just want to enjoy this experience, come what may. Right? Which is if you remember when you were teenagers, it was kind of like the energy we had. Like, I don't care about the consequences. I just want to live in the now, right? And we always keep talking bad about teenage people. Their brains are developing, they're not bad, but that type of freedom comes from the lack of overanalyzing, right? And it's this natural urge of trying to discover something new. It's kind of like if you're a wild animal and people move into a house and they start leaving food nearby, you're kind of curious and interested, and you may be timid in the beginning. But the more you move, that you realize there's food there, it's going to become natural, to the point that when the people that live there don't give you food, you have no question as a wild animal to start making a noise, knocking on the window, or saying like, hey, hello, where's my food? I'm right here, right? Because that is the natural relationship we have with life. It's cautious, but daredevil at the same time. We're willing to put ourselves out there, right? When we have that childlike experience. But when we come forth with all our pains and our fears and everything, the thing is, we are asking from here, but our feelings and emotions are sending a different signal down here. And this is what the universe responds to, not this. If it was as simple as just focusing, the life of everybody would be magical. But we have to focus coherently, and we also have to take action towards what we want, right? And for that, we have this massive, powerful navigation system, which is our heart, that is guiding us every step of the way, because there's no set thing, right? But if we're open, if we're more present, we're more able to receive what is it that life is trying to show us. What is it, the gift of the abundance that we are about to receive? Because life is never ending, a never ending source of never ending abundance, right? If you look at nature and seeds, you take a fruit, usually they have one or more seeds. And how many fruits do you receive from that one seed that you plant? That it becomes this never endless, life is this massive way of expansion. And it's in a constant communication, right? Connecting to grace means learning how to surf that ocean, learning how to move into that ocean with less resistance and a little bit of more joy in the way. But to be able to reach that point, we have to start where we are. So this is different than positive thinking or just positive affirmations. They are helpful if you're able to really go deep to what is it that happens within you when you're saying these positive affirmations, right? Just one, I am worthy of love. In the beginning, it feels fake. And the shortcut is like being, I wouldn't say, no, that's a better word, being accountable of this is what is in me, inside of me, and kind of embracing it in the sense of accepting that it's there and taking care of it as you would a child. And the more you continue to do the affirmation, the more breakthroughs you're going to have into that experience until that becomes your reality. So connecting to grace is more than just having clarity of intention. Clarity of intention is the first thing. But there is more to the clarity of intention. We also need to take action. And the more action we take into that, the more the universe will respond. There was something very beautiful that it's a saying that I listened in India many, many times. And what it is you take one step, the divine takes 10 steps or even 100, right? And it's because we're usually having all these feelings and emotions and perceptions and ideas and hurts and pains behind what we think the divine is and trying to get a hold of the experience here. But when we move into action, when we get out of our heads and do something externally, and the sense of sadhana, of consistency, is very powerful, because that action, taking that step, the moment you take that step, the universe figures a way out, because you're opening space for the universe to come forth more. Just remember that example that I was sharing. The more walls you have in that dam you have built of feeling separated and disconnected, right? And the more difficult it will be to see, experience, acknowledge grace. But the little things that we do to break that dam, we have the whole ocean with all its strength and power and might breaking from the other side too. We just have to crack it a little bit open. So moving into that space of action towards connecting to grace is a very powerful way of moving forth, right? And getting out of our heads. Because the thing is, the other day I was watching, I love neuroscience. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I like reading a lot about it and I like listening. And this is a very interesting time with a lot of discoveries that they have. And recently I was hearing somebody explain something, and they were saying, to say it in layman's term, that the brain is lazy. The brain will always use the shortest shortcut to do what it needs to do. And it will only do it into what it's known, what has become automatic, right? Those typical things we do all the time without knowing we are doing them, or without knowing we are feeling them, or without knowing they are happening. They become automatic. So the brain, so like we ask for a prayer, I want this in my life. And what is the fastest shortcut? Yeah, but I don't want to put too much energy into it. Nothing happens to me. Because that is the shortcut we have. So this game of creating this sacred space is discovering what are the shortcuts that we have inside and pushing a little bit out of that lazy brain syndrome, so to speak. In the sense of, in terms of being, of having a safe amount of energy to live life, we know we use the shortcuts to save energy, right? But taking the intention to break those habits, to create a new framework, it takes action. It takes physical action. It takes energy we have to do. So creating this sacred space involves the physical aspect of creating a space and sustaining a space, but it also involves the physical aspect of showing up with what it is inside, of being authentic and honest with yourself in that sacred space. Because if you want to look at it one way, whatever it is that is inside, you can't tell other people that you're okay, but you can't lie to the universe or the divine, because it is how you're feeling. And the universe only responds to that feeling. The divine only knows that feeling. So all the stories and everything else, it's kind of like a different understanding of free will. You have the free will to suffer as much as you want. You can struggle and resist it. There's no limit, right? Or you can just open up, crack open in a way. Yes, Leslie.
I think while you were talking, what came up for me, it was just this idea of like, if like the divine, I think what you said was like divine kind of offering grace, kind of giving grace. And I think what also came up for me while you're talking was like this idea of like reconnecting to the innocence within us, to be able to receive that grace. And that like, whether I'm feeling rage or whether I'm feeling terror or whether I'm feeling grief, it's been such a conditioned tendency for me to villainize those things in other people and myself. And if I can see it as just like part of the human experience to feel those things, then I'm not villainizing them. I'm just like, I don't know, normalizing them, like accepting the innocence of them. And then that makes it so much easier for me to kind of move with it. I don't know if that's.
For me, the experience has become, the more I have discovered things about myself, the more I have accepted things about myself, the more I have embraced and acknowledged my own humanity with its pettiness and all the things that I was conditioned not to like. But the more that doesn't mean I like them, but I know they're there. I'm no longer lying to myself, pretending that they're not there, or trying to do things to compensate for the fact that I have them there, right? The more I have acknowledged, yes, they are there. The more I have acknowledged everything, the less I find myself judging other people, villainizing them, the easier it is for me to put myself in their shoes because I see myself in you. I have that too, right? And for me, the most powerful thing to be able to move through that was in a sacred space, to be able to start having a relationship with the divine higher consciousness, the universe, whatever you want to call it, from that place of humanity, from that plane of authenticity, from that place of being able to be whatever I am in that moment. With rage, with anger, it doesn't matter, right? Even in places like what Claudia was sharing about going to that church where people had kneeled before Mother Mary before. Not everybody must have been happy or grateful. And that's not what we experience. We experience something different, right? There's something, because what we're experiencing is that like that vortex of grace that is there, no matter how we are. And that is the solace and the comfort we're yearning for. We're striving to allow the universe to make us feel it's okay with how we're feeling right now. That we're not going to be condemned into the damnations of whatever it is we think. It's either something like our own hell can be here now, or it can be waiting for us, right? And that constant fear makes a lot of things be very tricky. But when we move into a space that we're okay with having our humanity and understanding like, I'm still alive. You know what I mean? Like, if it was just in the account of my thoughts and the things that I want to do, like I remember, just to share an experience. I don't know if I told all of you, my country has had internal conflict and war for over 60 years. And I worked, I think it was over a decade with women in areas of war that had experienced different type of violence, not just the violence of war, but all the, right? And one of the jobs that I had, I was involved in, I was like a specialist in this jury case of this collective thing that was going on. And I remember it was the first time I saw a perpetrator that had done terrible things to a lot of people for a lot of time. And I was physically in the same room with that person. And I had been spiritual for 20 years. It wasn't my first rodeo, is what I'm trying to say. And internally, all I could think of was how to kill this person. There was no other type of thought in my brain. And internally, I had all the arguments why he deserved to die. And my mind was just focused on trying to figure out how can I make this happen without getting caught, even though I'm in a courthouse? Can I plead temporary insanity? I don't know. I was going through all the motions, right? This was not my first job. This was after 8 years of being in this field. What I'm trying to say, this was not the first time I was faced with a perpetrator. I was just faced with a perpetrator in a specific set of circumstances, right? And that was all that was going on in my mind. And I honestly thought I had it all together. Like, even though I had this internal fantasy, I was very composed because I was a specialist hired in a courthouse during a trial. Like I thought I was externally showing my composure until one of the victims touched my arm and asked me, "Are you okay?" And I just kind of snapped out of it. And I'm like, "Yes, of course." And she just looked at me and looked to the floor next to me. I always carry pencils and colors because all of these women, usually whenever we work with them, they would come with their children. So I had crayons and colors and a lot of stuff for their kids. And I had broken every single crayon and pencil and everything unconsciously in the courthouse because I was just focused into this person, like my whole body language. I was just honing him in, breaking things, right? And I'm pretty sure my face was, I'm not very good. I don't have poker face. I'm very straightforward. So that's how we're navigating life, right? I was trying to justify myself, all this rage and anger and why I wanted to kill this person. I was trying to hide that I was really there. The moment someone asked me, "Are you okay?" Like, "No, yeah, I'm fine," right? And I was absolutely unaware that I had broken over 200 pencils, colors, and crayons. I didn't even hear the sounds that was making. So that's how we are usually living our life, right? And being constantly, in that moment, I was in a space in my life where I was very angry because why does this happen? And as a woman, why are men doing these things? And the story of evolution of humanity. And I was just in this massive amount of pain and anger. And I really didn't want to acknowledge I had that because I thought if I did, it would make me the same as the person that was there. And it was only when I was in India, that was 5 years after this incident, that I started cracking open because I couldn't take it anymore. But it meant for me to do the action of creating this sacred space and sitting in front of it and kind of sharing. This is where I am. This is what's going on inside of me. I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I need help, I guess. Right? Like, I don't understand. And understanding, I had kind of like this weird perception of what prayer was and the relationship of power between me and the divine. And I didn't want that. I had all these crazy concepts, right? And I had to break down every single one of them. But the only way that would happen was with me showing up from that space of authenticity, right? I don't think right now, if I'm faced with the person that I was faced so many years ago, I would break all the pencils. I would have more of a sense of human connection, right? And the moment our interaction would stop, I would not take him home with me. Whereas I carried this person with me for a couple of years and we just met once, right? So this is kind of like our invitation in this course to physically create a space and to sustain that space so you can build a good foundation for that bridge to have that relationship with grace and the divine, to be able to put out a request. And Paula, I'm going to use you. I'm just going to use your example. I hope it doesn't trigger anything inside of you. But it's like Paula has, and I'm just assuming, it's just an example, has a yearning of finding this partner, right? And it's this inner longing. And the possibility of it being a good thing can be so scary, right? But embracing that it's okay to be scared. to having that authentic conversation with the divine and being like, hey, I'm sorry if I'm being too crass. I feel like I'm pooping my pants. This is how much fear I have, but I still want that relationship, right? So just guide me. Just hold me, right? Let me take a leap of faith, but you be that net underneath. Come what may. No matter what the result is, right? This is what I want, but this is where I am. So allow me, right? Guide me in this process. And having that effort of being like, okay, I'm willing to put myself out there, right? And I'm willing to enjoy and allow the pieces to fall where they may. Because we never know what's going to happen. We have an expectation of what we wanted to happen, but who knows? It's not about knowing. It's more about that surfing that wave that is here now. It can be a big wave. It could be a small wave. We can be paddling, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But to be able to be in that constant space, creating that sacredness is so important. And allowing your humanity to be present there is the most important thing. I don't know if you all remember that example I gave about Jesus in that field before all of it happened, how he was an example for me of absolute humanity, of crying, asking a way out, being authentic. This is where I am now, right? And the moment, this is just in the Christian tradition, for people that have a connection with the Christian tradition, kneeling down, it is an asana. It is a posture. What are the things that you do when you kneel down? You usually put your hands near your heart and you bow your head. You're on your knees. You lost your sense of pride. You're asking for help. That's what kneeling down means, right? Discovering that within ourselves, and that the moment we do that, there's a sacred space around us. That's what taking that action of kneeling down means. If you're more in the Hinduist or Muslim tradition, you literally just lay on the floor and prostrate. And that's also another way of conveying. And one of the things that I wanted as an invitation, and I want you to do this. My invitation is to do this in your sacred space. There is a physical mudra to invoke grace, very fast. And it's just, you can sit with your legs crossed or however you find comfortable. And you have to place your hands upwards in front of your heart, right? And when you do this physical posture, this is an asana. When you're doing this, you're in this mode of receiving. And you're going to go into your heart and just invoke grace with every cell of your being from the authentic place where you are, right? Like I'm living in the South, so I'm hearing a lot. I hope I'm understanding it right. I don't know if I am, but this is my interpretation of having a come to Jesus moment, right? Because everyone here says that people have to find their come to Jesus moment. I don't know what that is, but for me, it looks something like that moment of like, this is where I am. This is my humanity. This is what's going on inside of me, right? I'm here asking for help. Please come. And you're doing this. This is a mudra. This is something you do with your hands. The mudra is how you place your hands. The asana is how you place your body, right? For this asana, you have your head a little bit tilted forward, but not too much that it's uncomfortable. just a little bit tilted forward. And then you have a mantra. And we can call this a bija mantra or a seed mantra. And what a bija mantra or a seed mantra is like a specific, just one word syllable. But here we're going to take a different shift. And we are going to use either the word we have for our divine, whatever it is, the name we have, if we have a name. And if we don't have a name, we just use the word grace. That's it. So you're doing like a triple action. You're having an asana, a physical posture. You're having a mudra with your hands, and you're having a mantra with your voice. So you're connecting this, this, and this. You're moving into coherence, right? Into invoking. And you're going to do this being authentic with where you are, just being acknowledging this is where I am. This is what's going on inside of me, but I'm calling out for you. And just do this for 7 minutes. My invitation would be create the sacred space and do this for 7 minutes. Take that action, right? And you can even, this was something that was very fascinating for me to listen to in India. It was very shocking, but I found that one of the most powerful things you can, because it disrupts the idea of what type of relationship you can have with the divine or the higher. And it said, our teacher in India said once that the divine really loves to be put to the test. So it's kind of having a childlike conversation. For those of you who have children or nieces, nephews, or little kids around you, there comes a time when they negotiate with you. If you love me, you're going to give me ice cream. My son Gabriel is in the ice cream stage. So he comes to me with big wide eyes and, Mama, are you happy? And I'm like, yeah. Mama, you love me? I'm like, yeah. It's like, I want ice cream. Right? And having that becomes a very, and that's a whole conversation for a different course, I think. But that's how, and what does that generate in us as parents? Either you internally or externally start laughing, like you can't hold it together because it's very authentic. It's very real, right? So our teacher in India always explained, the more authentic you are, the more childlike you are with the divine will take on you. And even if it is coming from the space of like, I'm doing this, but I'm doing this because I want you to show me you're real, right? I'm doing this and I need your answer. But we have to show up, right? We have to be that child coming and kind of knocking on the door. Instead of being the teenager in the room, sulking, waiting for things to happen, right? Having that openness of like, okay, I need either to amp up my relationship with the divine, I need to something, whatever it is that you want. And creating that space and taking that action. I'm going to do 7 minutes, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 1 minute, just something, right? Some time. And try to create that bridge, that very palpable bridge. And start from there. This is a powerful step into ways to really open and cracking open all our walls and allowing that ocean of grace to flood in. It's already there, but we just need that influx, right? To experience it again as many times as we need. Does anyone have any question? No questions? You're going to make me believe I'm really good at explaining things. I don't know. These things have taken me years. I don't know how easy it is to really explain them, but okay. I'll take the credit for the moment. So for all of us to, so that is my invitation for tonight, to move into that space and to do that invocation. And what we can do, if it's okay with all of you, we can take 7 minutes, if it's okay for the people that can spare 7 minutes, and we can do it together, right? We can close today's class with 7 minutes of really moving into this triple action of invoking grace. The mudra, the asana, right? A little bit of the head tilted forward, but the back straight. If it's more comfortable to kneel down, you can kneel down, or you can sit, or whatever finds comfortable, but your back should be straight. And I will close my microphone just to not disturb you, but find that word that looks for you, okay? So I'm going to, I will invite for all of you, because this is a very private moment. I will invite for all of you to turn off your cameras, but I will count the 7 minutes if that's okay. So allow yourself to be in an upright position. Close your eyes. Put your hands in the mudra, palms facing upwards in front of your heart. From where you are and what you're feeling and whatever it is that's going on inside of you, simply acknowledge it. Let it be there. Allowing you to embrace whatever is there. And simply start using your personal mantra to connect with divine grace as an invocation, as a calling out for grace to fill you, to fill your lives and everything around you. Allow this process to guide you, to take you wherever it needs to take you. Embrace whatever is there within you and allow yourself to float in the ocean of grace. If you're able to, continue to keep your eyes closed. Have a wonderful evening. Namaste.